Hey, I'm John Ost. Most people just call me Toast. I'm with the Pennsylvania Kayak Fishing Association and FishYacker.com. I'm joined by some of my buddies from the Old Town Pro staff. We're here in Union, Pennsylvania on the north branch of the Susquehanna River. We're going to do a little float and we're going to be targeting smallmouth and maybe get the occasional muskie. When I moved to Pennsylvania in 2009 from Virginia, there were probably only 3 or 4 really serious kayak fishermen around the state of Pennsylvania. It's really evolved. Kayak fishing started really in saltwater, mostly in California and on the southeast. And there weren't a lot of people doing freshwater kayak fishing. And over the last 5 or 6 years, you've started seeing a lot of freshwater kayak fishing tournament series, like with the Pennsylvania Kayak Fishing Association. Like here today, this is a Monday, and you've got several of us here on the water. You probably wouldn't have seen this just 4 or 5 years ago. When I moved here, I'd go to a boat ramp and I'd have a kayak and everybody would be like, wow, you're fishing out of a kayak. But now kayak fishing really is one of the fastest growing aspects of the outdoor sports industry. Well, since we're on kind of a slow bite, the smallers are just that, they're really small. I'm just downsizing using a soft plastic crawfish on a jig head. And since we're getting on so many smaller fish, they're simply pulling the soft plastic down on the jig head. So here's a little trick that I always do. I always carry some type of super glue with me. That way, you can always make sure that the soft plastic will stay on the hook a little bit better. So without sticking getting yourself stuck to it, I simply put a little dab of super glue on the hook. And when I'm bringing it up, it holds it in place. So that way if a fish bites, it'll come off the barb, but it'll stay on up near the jig head. So if you don't already do it, grab yourself some cheap super glue, keep it in your tackle box. You just make it a whole lot quicker and easier when you're casting and getting a lot of little short bites. So a nice little chunky smallmouth. Always be sure to release your fish, let somebody else catch it when you're done. Practice CPR, catch, photo, and release. But that guy hit on that small soft plastic craw that I was talking about. And he was just right after a little chute came down, so it was aerated. The water was more oxygenated and it was a little bit cooler. And I knew right there up against a rock where there's some ripples, I knew one would be there. He actually was, and he drilled it. Our group primarily uses sit-on-top kayaks. If you're not that familiar with them, you have sit-inside kayaks and sit-on-top kayaks. The sit-insides are your more traditional kayak with a hole that you actually sit down inside of. Those are really great. They work well in the Susquehanna River for fishing. But we like primarily, such as these. This is an Old Town Predator MX. It's a sit-on-top kayak because it's a lot easier and quicker to get in and out of the kayak. You simply sit in it, turn side saddle, get in and out of the boat. When you're actually going out looking at possibly purchasing your first kayak, the main thing you want to consider though is the weight capacity. A lot of people will simply go and buy a kayak without thinking about their personal weight, the weight of all their fishing gear and everything else. But the main thing you want to look for, whether it's a sit on top or a sit inside kayak, is how much the weight capacity is to make sure you have plenty of water line, plenty of boat above the water so you're not sitting too low, and so it'll maneuver properly when you're in it.
So here's a basic weightless Texas rig. What I'm gonna do here, give myself some slack. All right, so I'm gonna take the hook upside down, take my Senko right through the head. Just put that on there far enough to cover that elbow right there. So I'm gonna pop it through, push them right up over that elbow, twist it. Now I'm gonna measure where that hook's gonna poke through my Senko. Put it through, the whole way through, pop them out. You've got a pretty good weedless rig right there. And if you want to go even more weedless, you can do as much as stretch them a little bit, put that hook inside. So once I got that done, there's my Texas rig Senko. Best fish finder there is. All right, so once I got my Texas rig Senko on, I pretty much find a place where it looks like it would hold some fish, and I'm just gonna cast them right out there. Give just a little bit of slack for the current to take it. Tighten my line up. I'm just gonna let it sit. I'm gonna drift along, keep my line tight, Every once in a while I'll reel in a few feet and I'll feel the weight of the fish. I'll let the fish swim enough just to get a good bite on it. I'll set the hook back, got my fish on. I was dead sticking that Cinco and bam, nice smallmouth bass.
You can get to places where you can't get with anything else. Especially and on the river when it's low like this. You don't see any motorboats out here today. We're on a pond. You can get in the lily pads and park over a hole in the lily pads and sit there all day away with the boats going by.
Well, when you're fishing from a kayak, for starters, you are at the water. You're self-powered, so you get a workout out of it as well. And if anyone's interested in kayak fishing, best thing I can always say is try as many kayaks out as you possibly can to find your comfort zone. They don't make one perfect kayak. I do have quite a few poles or fishing rods on my kayak. Reason being is it's easier to reach behind me. I can set them up with multiple lures and quickly change out as fast as I possibly can, depending on what the bite is. And then on the back side of this particular kayak, which works really, really well, the very tall black pole that's right in the back, it's called a river stick. It's really nice because it rises and lowers. I can stop myself in rapids. I could use it for windy days, keep myself stable and positioned so I can enjoy fishing all day long.
With Fish Yacker on YouTube, we've put out about 400 videos. A lot of them actually are on the water footage, such as behind me. I have a very basic GoPro setup system. It's a Yak Attack panfish. It's an over-the-shoulder point of view camera. It's 1080p. It works really well. But there's products like that you can get available. Mine actually attaches to the kayak with a T-bolt system onto the track. But a lot of guys that are out kayak fishing use their GoPros, use other brand action cameras, and you really can get some cool footage while you're on the water. Caught this beautiful smallmouth here on a green tube. Just jigging him on the bottom in pretty deep water. Actually, this guy wasn't in current or near a structure. He was kind of out pretty far. When you catch a bigger fish, say like a muskie, they'll actually tow you around. A lot of the smallmouth in the Susquehanna River will actually start towing you around. We call it a sleigh ride in kayak fishing. So it doesn't take much of a fish to start pulling you around. But being right there on the water next to it is a totally different experience than you have anywhere else fishing. Really nice catfish, jigging the bottom on a tube bait. So you'll be fishing for bass on a tube, you never know what you're gonna come into. Really nice catfish, especially in a kayak. Tows you around. I guess that was what, about a 5-minute fight? So, not bad. It's just great in general to get on the water, especially in a kayak. It's really unrivaled by any other type of watercraft. It's totally natural. There's no power, no noise. You can float right up on the fish and it won't even know you're there. So if you've never tried kayak fishing, you really should.
That's going to wrap up our show here today from North Point Auto and Equipment here in Northumberland. Get down here, visit with John or Justin, check out all the trailers, and much, much more. I want to thank our sponsors, Weaver's Archery in Middleburg and Sickler's Bike and Sport Shop in Kingston and Clark Summit. We'll see you next week in the great outdoors.
This has been another locally produced show by Fox 56, CW38, My TV and Me TV, the leading producer of local programming.